Welcome to Hollywood Graveyard. Today I turn the camera over to you, the Hollywood Graveyard community, as we travel the world to visit famous and historical graves in your neck of the woods. In this tour we're exploring Texas, to find legends like Larry Hagman, Ann B. Davis, Peter Mayhew, Buddy Holly, and many more. My friends, the time is y'all's. They say everything is bigger in Texas, and that includes the number of video submissions we got from Texas, more than any other state. As such, Texas, you get your own video. We found a few stars from the Lone Star State in our first viewers series, like Gene Tierney and Selena. Today we'll dive deeper into the graveyards of Texas to meet more stars and other historical figures that tell the story of this state. Our Texas travels today begin in Lubbock and City of Lubbock Cemetery. Signs point the way to our first star, Buddy Holly. We've covered many stars who were pivotal in the development of rock and roll in the 50s, and Buddy Holly ranks right up there with them. Buddy began playing guitar from a young age, influenced by country and rhythm and blues, then in the 50s latched on to a budding music style called rock and roll. In the early 50s, he and his group began making appearances on TV, and after opening for Elvis in 1955, he knew he was destined for a career in music. His band would soon be known as The Crickets, releasing hit tracks like That'll Be the Day and Peggy Sue.
Oh, Peggy, my Peggy Sue.
Buddy Holly's meteoric rise to rock and roll stardom would be abruptly halted in one of the music world's most tragic events. After a show in Iowa, he chartered a plane to the next show in Minnesota. Flying with him were fellow music stars Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper. Shortly after takeoff, in the early morning hours of February 3rd, 1959, the plane crashed, killing all four on board. Buddy Holly was just 22. This became known as the day the music died, as referenced in Don McLean's song, American Pie. Let's take a walk to find another music star in these grounds. Mac Davis. He was a country music singer and songwriter who also enjoyed some crossover success. He began his career as a songwriter, penning hits for the likes of Elvis Presley, like In the Ghetto.
In the ghetto.
He would go on to have a successful career as a solo artist, with hits like Baby Don't Get Hooked on Me. Mac would also make appearances in film and television, including hosting his own variety show in the 70s. Mac Davis died following complications from heart surgery at age 78. Over to Block 15, we find a football star by the name of Bobby Layne. He was one of the NFL's first great passers, playing between 1948 and 1962 for the Bears, Bulldogs, Lions, and Steelers. He would lead his team to 3 Super Bowl victories with the Lions. In 1967, Layne was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He died from cardiac arrest at age 59. Our next Texas cemetery is Elmwood in Abilene. Here lies actor James Drury. His biggest claim to fame is right here on his tombstone. James played the title role in the Western TV series The Virginian in close to 250 episodes between 1962 and 1971. He would continue to make appearances in westerns like Walker, Texas Ranger, and The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., as well as films like Pollyanna. He lived to be 85. We're in Claret now, and Claret Cemetery. Here lies Paul A. Partain. His credits may have been few, but they were memorable. He's perhaps best remembered for his role as wheelchair-bound Franklin in The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Years later, he would appear in the sequel, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Other films include Race with the Devil. Paul died from cancer at age 58. Heading now toward the Dallas-Fort Worth area, this is Azelland Cemetery. Let's make the jump to Lightspeed to cross the cemetery and visit one of the biggest stars from a galaxy far, far away. Here lies Peter Mayhew. He was working as an orderly at a hospital in England when he was cast as Chewbacca in 1977's Star Wars. Standing 7 feet 3 inches tall, he was immediately cast when he stood to greet George Lucas.
Well, you said it, Chewie.
Mayhew would play the Wookiee with a big heart in all his live-action appearances from the original film to The Force Awakens in 2015. At this point, nearing retirement, he began mentoring his replacement, Jonas Suotamo, who has played Chewie since The Last Jedi. Mayhew, the gentle giant, died from a heart attack at age 74. This is Dido Cemetery. In these grounds rests Townes Van Zandt. He's considered one of the great songwriters to come out of Texas, penning hits like Pancho and Lefty, If I Needed You, and To Live Is to Fly, referenced right here on his marker. His songs have been performed by greats from Willie Nelson to Emmylou Harris. Townes died from a heart ailment at age 52. His life was the subject of the 2004 film Be Here to Love Me. We're back at Greenwood Memorial Park, where we visited Rod Roddy in our previous series. Several more legends to find here, like Tex Beneke. He was a saxophone player, singer, and big band leader, beginning in the 1930s. He's closely associated with Glenn Miller's band, having performed on hits like In the Mood and Chattanooga Choo Choo. After Glenn Miller's disappearance during World War II, Tex Beneke would step in to lead the band. And he would even lead his own band for a time, Tex Beneke and his orchestra. He died from respiratory failure at age 86. In the Masonic section here at Greenwood, we find Roy Roberts. He was a prolific character actor who often played authority figures in films like House of Wax and Chinatown. And he had recurring roles in shows like McHale's Navy, Bewitched, Petticoat Junction, and Gunsmoke as Mr. Bodkin. By the 60s, he was one of the most familiar faces on TV. Roy died from a heart attack at age 69. Next up at Greenwood is an aviation pioneer, Ormer Locklear. He's remembered particularly as a daredevil stunt pilot. After serving in the US Army Air Service, Locklear formed his Locklear Flying Circus in the early 1900s. His stunts would include walking on the wings in flight, and he and another pilot swapping planes mid-air. His flying circus performed throughout the US and caught the attention of Hollywood. Carl Laemmle signed Locklear to a 2-film deal, showcasing his unique aerial talents in a pair of films in 1919 and 1920. During the filming of the second, The Skywayman, the final stunt was a night shoot where Locklear would perform a dive and pull out last minute. He informed the lighting crew to douse the bright lights when he began the dive so he could see the ground and pull out. However, the bright lights were never doused, perhaps blinding Locklear. Unable to see the ground to pull up, he flew full speed into the ground, killing him and his co-pilot instantly. The Skywayman was released with the fatal footage intact, and even shamelessly capitalized on the tragedy. Locklear was 28. Let's head now into the mausoleum. Here we find the crypt of Ben Hogan. He's considered to be one of the greatest golfers to ever play the game. He began playing professionally in the 1930s and would go on to be one of only 5 players to win all 4 majors: the Masters Tournament, the Open Championship, the US Open, and the PGA Championship. His 9 major championship wins tie him for 4th all time. Hogan's golf swing is widely regarded as one of the greatest, and he even wrote a golf tutorial book about his techniques. Ben Hogan lived to be 84. This is Independence Chapel. Herein rests Van Cliburn. He was one of the great classical pianists of the last century. He won worldwide fame in 1958 when he won the inaugural International Tchaikovsky competition in Moscow. It was the height of the Cold War, and a source of pride for the US, making him a classical musician with rock star status. He would go on to tour internationally and play for royalty and heads of state. In 2003, he would be awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Cliburn died from cancer at age 78. We've arrived now at Mount Olivet Cemetery in Fort Worth. Here is the grave of Catherine Moylan, one of the great Jazz Age beauties. In 1926, she won the title of Miss Dallas and went on to be crowned Beauty Queen of the Universe. She would then make her Broadway debut in the Ziegfeld Follies of 1927, followed by Whoopee in 1928. During this period, Catherine would also be a popular glamour model and would have a small film career, appearing in Our Blushing Brides and Love in the Rough. By the mid-30s, Catherine retired from the limelight, living her life out of the public eye here in Texas. She died from heart disease at age 65. Heading over to Founders section, we find the grave of D. Lampton. He was a silent film actor, seen in around 60 productions from 1915 to 1920. During this time, he worked for both Max Sennett and Hal Roach studios. Perhaps his best-known role is the character ironically named Schemer Skinny in a series of films in 1917. His final film role was alongside Harold Lloyd in Haunted Spooks. Lampton was just 20 when he died from appendicitis. This is Sheriff Israel Memorial Park in Dallas. Here lies Harry Monty. As an actor, he began his career performing on vaudeville, then made his screen debut in one of the biggest films ever made. He was one of numerous little people hired for The Wizard of Oz in 1939. He did double duty, playing both a munchkin and a winged monkey. He'd continued to perform on film and television into the 80s, making multiple appearances in shows like Lost in Space and H.R. Pufnstuf. Harry Monty, a giant of a man, lived to be 95. Next up is City Greenwood Cemetery in Weatherford. Here is the grave of Mary Martin. The actress and singer was a muse of Rodgers and Hammerstein, originating many lead roles on the Broadway stage, including Nellie in South Pacific, the title character in Peter Pan, and Maria in The Sound of Music. She would reprise her role as Peter Pan on television a number of times. She would also appear in film, sometimes as herself, like in Night and Day. Mary died from cancer at age 76. She was the mother of actor Larry Hagman, who we'll be visiting shortly. Our next stop is Moore Memorial Gardens in Arlington. Here we find the Abbott brothers, Vinne, Paul, and Dimebag Darrell. Vinne Paul was the drummer and co-founder of the heavy metal band Pantera. The band formed here in Texas in the early 80s and would grow to become one of the most influential metal bands in history, selling around 20 million albums worldwide. Vinne would also perform with the band Hell Yeah. Today he ranks among the great metal drummers of all time. Vinne Paul was 54 when he died from heart disease. Paul had formed Pantera with his brother, Darrell, known as Dimebag Darrell. He was the lead guitarist for the band, and like his brother, ranks among the best. The band's major label debut, Cowboys from Hell, introduced a groove metal sound characteristic of Dimebag's playing. Pantera dissolved in 2003, and Vinne and Darrell then formed Damage Plan. In 2004, the band was performing in a nightclub in Ohio. During the set, a crazed fan rushed the stage with a gun and shot Dimebag Darrell multiple times. He died at the scene at just 38. Gene Simmons donated a Kiss casket for his burial, and Eddie Van Halen donated his original Bumblebee guitar as an offering in the casket. Also here at Moore is the namesake of the Amber Alert, Amber Hagerman. Young Amber was abducted while riding her bike in Arlington, Texas. Tragically, her body was found 4 days later in a creek. She was 9. Her murder remains unsolved. Amber's parents then began to support and spearhead efforts to pass legislation to protect children and improve resources to help find missing children. This would develop into the National Child Abduction Alert System. The Amber Alert System is named for Amber and is also an acronym for America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response. We're back at Sparkman Hillcrest, where previously we visited Greer Garson and Mickey Mantle. Let's begin our time here today in the mausoleum. Here is the crypt of Mary Kay Ash. In 1963, at the age of 45, she started Mary Kay Cosmetics, now one of the largest network marketing companies in the world, with wholesale volume in the billions. In an age of male-driven business, Mary Kay was an inspiration to businesswomen everywhere, providing opportunities for women to be their own bosses. Mary Kay lived to be 83. Back out to the grounds, here is August Schellenberg. He was an actor of Mohawk and Swiss-German descent. He's perhaps best remembered for playing Randolph, the whale trainer, in the Free Willy movies. Other film roles include Comina in Black Robe and voicing Norrell in Heavy Metal. And on TV, August was nominated for an Emmy for playing Sitting Bull in Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. He battled lung cancer later in life, passing away at age 77. As of filming, his marker is still temporary. In the Garden of Prayer, we find Freddie King. He was a blues guitarist, singer, and songwriter. He's known as one of the three kings of blues guitar, with Albert and Beebe. He rose to prominence in the 50s and 60s with hits like You've Got to Love Her with a Feeling and the instrumental Hideaway. Freddie would be inducted into both the Blues and Rock and Roll Halls of Fame. Freddie King was just 42 when he died from stomach ulcers and pancreatitis. Moving on to Monument Garden and the grave of Maureen Connolly. She was a tennis player, the winner of 9 major single titles in the early 50s. In 1953, she became the first woman to win all 4 major tournaments in the same calendar year, a Grand Slam. She's also the only player in history to win a title without losing a set in all 4 major championships. But injuries from a horseback riding accident in 1954 ended her competitive career at age 19. Maureen was just 34 when she died from cancer. Maureen rests here with her husband, Norman Brinker. He was part of the US equestrian team at the 1952 Summer Olympics, after which he went into the restaurant business, serving as president of Jack in the Box and founding Steak and Ale. He's also sometimes credited for popularizing the salad bar. He died from pneumonia at age 78. You Cowboy fans know this next name, Tom Landry. He was the first head coach of the Dallas Cowboys football team when they formed in 1960. He would coach the team for the next 29 years, winning 13 division titles and taking the team to 5 Super Bowls, winning 2. Tom was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1990. He lived to be 75, passing away from leukemia in 2000. Another familiar Texas name here is Ross Perot. As a businessman, he founded Electronic Data Systems and Perot Systems, which would make him a billionaire. Perot is also remembered for having run perhaps the most successful independent third-party presidential campaigns in recent history. In 1992 against Bush and Clinton, and 1996 against Clinton and Dole. He would use his wealth for philanthropic causes and was heavily involved in the Vietnam War POW MIA issue, advocating for servicemen left behind. Ross Perot died from leukemia at age 89. Let's hop back in the car and take a ride to Restland Memorial Park. Here's the grave of Patrick Cranshaw. The actor is perhaps best remembered for his role as Blue in the 2003 comedy Old School. On TV, he had recurring roles in shows like Mork and Mindy, Alice, and After MASH. Cranshaw died from pneumonia at age 86. This section is Veterans 2. Here is the grave of Justin Mentell. He was an actor, best known for his role as Garrett Wells in 16 episodes of Boston Legal, beginning in 2005. He'd appear in a handful of films as well, including G-Force in 2009. But his career was cut tragically short in 2010 in a car accident. He was 27. Let's make our way over to the mausoleum. Herein we find the crypt of Ray Price. He was a country music singer, songwriter, and guitarist, fondly remembered as the Cherokee Cowboy. His innovations like pushing the 4/4 beat helped move country further into the popular music stream. His hits include Crazy Arms and For the Good Times. Ray was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1996 and continued to perform into his 80s. He passed away from cancer at age 87. We're at Ridgeview Memorial Park in Allen, Texas. Here lies Christopher Big Black Boykin. As stated here on his stone, he's best known for his role in MTV's Rob and Big, a reality TV series that followed professional skateboarder Rob Dyrdek and his bodyguard, Big Black Boykin. The show ran from 2006 to 2008. He'd appear as himself in a number of films as well, including Skate Life. Boykin was just 45 when he died from heart failure. In the northwest corner of the cemetery, we find Dave Williams. He was the original lead singer of the rock band Drowning Pool, which formed in Dallas in the 90s. They rose to fame with their debut album and playing Ozfest in 2001. Their biggest hit of the era was 2001's Bodies.
Let the bodies hit the floor, let the bodies hit the floor, let the bodies hit the...
In August 2002, Dave was found dead in the tour bus in Virginia from heart failure. He was 30. Today he ranks among the all-time great metal vocalists. This is Arlington Cemetery, where lies Morgan Woodward. He had a number of memorable roles on television, including as Shotgun Gibbs in The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp, Philip Colville on Days of Our Lives, and perhaps most notably as Punk on the daytime soap opera Dallas. And on the big screen, he had a memorable role as Boss Godfrey in Cool Hand Luke. Woodward lived to be 93. Next up is Calvary Hill Cemetery in Dallas. Here lies Conrad Hilton. He was a businessman known as the founder of the Hilton Hotels chain. He bought his first hotel in Cisco in 1919. He went on to buy and build hotels throughout Texas, then expanded to California and east to Chicago and New York. He soon went international, making Hilton Hotels the first intercontinental chain. Hilton was also one of Zsa Zsa Gabor's 9 husbands, and was the great-grandfather of socialite Paris Hilton. Conrad Hilton lived to be 91. Let's head into the mausoleum here at Calvary Hill. Here's the crypt of Dorothy Malone. The sultry-voiced blonde beauty won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress in 1957 for her bad girl performance in Written on the Wind. Other notable films include The Big Sleep and her final film, Basic Instinct in 1992. She also found success on television, playing Constance on Peyton Place. Dorothy lived to be 93. Also here in the mausoleum is Charlie Pride. He was a country musician who rose to popularity in the 1970s, one of the earliest African-American country music stars. For a time, he was RCA Records' best-selling artist since Elvis. During his peak, he had 52 top 10 hits on the country music charts, including his signature tune, Kiss an Angel Good Morning.
Kiss an angel good morning, and let her know you think about her when you're gone.
Charlie was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2000. He died from complications of COVID-19 in 2020 at age 86. You've read the story of Jesse James, of how he lived and died. If you're still in need of something to read, here's the story of Bonnie and Clyde. This is the first stanza of a poem written by a talented poet who isn't at all remembered for being a poet. In fact, it was written by its own subject, Bonnie Parker, of Bonnie and Clyde fame. This is Crown Hill Memorial Park in Dallas, where rests the infamous Bonnie. She met Clyde Barrow in 1930 at just 19. The two fell instantly in love and would be inseparable. Not long after, Bonnie would help spring Clyde from jail and eventually join him full measure in his criminal exploits in the Great Depression era. The young, attractive couple ruled the media headlines, embodying the perceived sexy romanticism of the outlaw life. That romanticism translating to screen numerous times, including the 1967 film starring Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. Bonnie's partner in crime, Clyde Barrow, is buried in Western Heights Cemetery, several miles south. Clyde began dabbling in criminal mischief in his teens, stealing cars, robbing stores, and cracking safes. Clyde was 21 when he met Bonnie, who would soon join him in his life of crime. Throughout the early 30s, the pair would travel Texas and the Midwest, along with others as part of the Barrow Gang, which eventually included Clyde's brother Buck, also buried here. Their criminal exploits included robbery, kidnapping, even murder. Law enforcement, including the FBI, began to close in on them, and deep down they knew they wouldn't make it out alive. The end came for Bonnie and Clyde in May 1934, when a posse ambushed them in their car along a Louisiana state highway. They were gunned down in a shower of bullets.
Here is Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker, who died as they lived, by the gun.
Bonnie was 23, Clyde 25. Bonnie and Clyde wished to be buried side by side, but the Parker family wouldn't allow it, so they rest miles apart. Campaigns exist to this day to have Bonnie and Clyde reburied side by side, as expressed in the final stanza of The Story of Bonnie and Clyde. Someday they'll go down together, and they'll bury them side by side. To few it means grief, to the law it is relief, but it is death to Bonnie and Clyde. Two of the Texas Rangers who brought down Bonnie and Clyde are down in Austin Memorial Park Cemetery. Frank Hamer was the Texas Ranger who led the 1934 posse that tracked down and killed Bonnie and Clyde. He became a national hero for it. Hamer also led the fight against the Ku Klux Klan in Texas, saving numerous people from lynch mobs. Manny Galt was one of Hamer's assistants, a member of the posse that brought down Bonnie and Clyde. He rests here as well. The two were depicted by Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson in the Netflix film, The Highwayman. Sticking with the outlaw lore, let's visit Machine Gun Kelly. No, not Megan Fox's fiancé, the real Machine Gun Kelly, here at Cottondale Cemetery. Kelly was a notorious Depression-era gangster. His nickname came from his favorite weapon, the Thompson submachine gun. His crimes included bootlegging and robbery, but his claim to criminal fame would have to be the kidnapping of oil tycoon Charles Urschel, for which he collected a $200,000 ransom in 1933. He was later arrested and spent his remaining 21 years in Alcatraz. He died from a heart attack on his 59th birthday. This next one is for you thrill ride enthusiasts. We're at Grove Hill Memorial Park back in Dallas, where we find the grave of Angus Wynne. He began his career as a commercial real estate developer, but after a trip to Disneyland in the 1950s, Wynne decided his home state of Texas needed its own amusement park. Construction began in 1960 on what would become Six Flags over Texas, the Six Flags representing the 6 countries that have governed Texas. This would be the first of now around 24 Six Flags-related park locations, including Six Flags Magic Mountain, back home in Southern California. Angus Wynne lived to be 65. Next up here at Grove Hill is an actor by the name of Henry Calvin. His best-known role is that of Sergeant Garcia on Disney's Zorro series in the 50s and 60s, in over 80 episodes. And on film, he'd play Gonzorgo in Babes in Toyland. Calvin was also known for his singing voice, including the song Never Smile at a Crocodile. He died from cancer at age 57. In these grounds also rests an entire family of wrestlers, the Von Erichs. David Von Erich was the second of the Von Erich brothers to wrestle professionally. With his brother Kevin, he would win the NWA Tag Team Championship in 1978. David also won the Texas Heavyweight title numerous times. He'd be known as the Yellow Rose of Texas. David died in 1984 while on a wrestling tour of Japan at the age of 25. The cause was reported as enteritis. Mike Von Erich was the 5th Von Erich son, known as the Inspirational Warrior. Following David's death, Mike replaced him in the Von Erich feud with the Fabulous Freebirds. In 1984, he'd be named Rookie of the Year by Pro Wrestling Illustrated. That same year, he won the WCCW NWA American Heavyweight Championship. In 1987, Mike left a suicide note and overdosed on alcohol and sleeping pills. He was 23. Next to Mike is Chris Von Erich, the youngest of the brothers. Due to asthma, small stature, and brittle bones, Chris was never able to match the success of his brothers as a wrestler. He began wrestling professionally in 1990, including tag team with his brother Kevin. After the death of his brother Mike and frustrations with his inability to make headway as a wrestler, he began to experience depression. In September 1991, Chris was found by his brother Kevin and mother outside their family farm, with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his head. He was 21. Kerry Von Erich was the 4th brother, known as the modern-day warrior. He made his debut in 1978 and rose to prominence in the 80s, particularly in the WCCW. He also spent some time with the WWF under the ring name the Texas Tornado. Kerry would become the most successful of the brothers, winning the NWA World Heavyweight title against Ric Flair in 1984. That same year, he was voted Most Popular Wrestler of the Year. In the early 90s, Kerry spoke to fellow wrestler Bret Hart about his desire to join his brothers in heaven. Hart told him his daughters here needed him more than his brothers in heaven, hoping that would change his mind. But Kerry's marriage had ended. He became addicted to painkillers after having his foot amputated from a motorcycle accident, and he had run-ins with the law. So in February of '93, Kerry shot himself in the heart. He was 33. The patriarch of this talented but tragic family is Fritz Von Erich. After playing football, Fritz turned to wrestling in the 50s. By his retirement in the 80s, he was a record 20-time WCWA champion. Fritz was also owner of the WCCW territory. Fritz outlived all but one of his sons, leading to a myth about a family curse, the Von Erich curse. The entire Von Erich family was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2009. Our next Lone Star star is a name familiar to just about any fan of television, Larry Hagman. The son of Broadway legend Mary Martin, Larry would follow in his mother's footsteps and become an actor. His big break came in 1965 when he was cast as Anthony Nelson in the sitcom I Dream of Jeannie.
Look, I know you're upset, but I want you to know it's not my fault.
You tricked me.
The show ran for 5 seasons and has become a beloved cultural icon, shown in syndication to this day. He would follow this up with perhaps his best-known role, which brings us to where we are today. This is South Fork Ranch, filming location and now museum to the popular primetime television soap opera, Dallas. In 1978, Hagman was cast as ruthless oil baron J.R. Ewing, a role he'd play for over a decade. When the series ended in 1991, Hagman had appeared in over 350 episodes, his character J.R. the only to appear in every episode. The 1980 Season 3 finale would become one of the greatest and most talked about cliffhanger moments in television history. Audiences the world over trying to figure out who shot J.R. Hagman reprised his role in the TNT Dallas sequel, which began in 2012. But after Hagman's death, the J.R. character was killed off in Season 2. Hagman died from cancer at age 81. He was cremated, his ashes scattered here on the grounds of the ranch he loved so much. This serene view comes to us from the Dallas-Fort Worth National Cemetery. Here lies a veteran named Glenn McDuffie. His claim to fame is listed right here on his stone. McDuffie is one of several men purporting to be the kissing sailor in Alfred Eisenstadt's 1945 photo VJ Day in Times Square, one of the most famous images of World War II, capturing spontaneous celebrations in the streets after Japan surrendered. Of all the men claiming to be the kissing sailor, 2 top the list as most likely candidates, both having the backing of some degree of forensic evidence and both even making the claim on their tombstones. The other was a sailor named George Mendonça, buried in Rhode Island, whose grave features the image itself. It's likely both men truly believed they were the kissing sailor, as that day in Times Square many sailors got caught up in the moment and were joyfully kissing people. So which one is it? I couldn't tell you. The photo may be black and white, but sometimes history itself is not. In these grounds is also a veteran turned actor, James Hampton. Among his best-known roles are as Harold Howard in the 1985 film Teen Wolf. He would reprise the role in the animated series and 1987 sequel. Other memorable roles include as Dobbs on F Troop and Leroy Simpson on The Doris Day Show. Hampton died from complications of Parkinson's disease at age 84. Next up is Laurel Land. Here is the grave of B.W. Stevenson. He was a musician, a popular figure in the progressive country movement in the 70s. He had a top 10 hit in the 1973 song, My Maria. Stevenson's career was cut short at 38 after dying from complications of heart surgery. Over to section 55, we find Richard Newton. He was a producer on many popular shows of the 60s and 70s, like Burke's Law, Hawaii Five-0, and Mod Squad. Newton would also appear in front of the camera, perhaps most notably playing Judge Cooksey on the TV series Matlock. Richard Newton's grave is another example of inconsistencies with dates. His birth year is given here as 1926, but many online records list it as 1911. In section 69, we find a popular singer who went by the mononym Oliver. His first big hit was the song Good Morning Sunshine from the Broadway musical Hair. His rendition of Jean, theme from the film The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, would also be a top 10 hit. Oliver died from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at age 54. In previous videos, we've visited John F. Kennedy and various figures associated with his assassination. As that event took place right here in Dallas, we'll find several more individuals related to Kennedy's assassination here, like J.D. Tippit. After Kennedy's assassination, local law enforcement officers were notified to keep on the lookout for the assassin, matching Oswald's description. Officer Tippit was with the Dallas Police Department, patrolling a beat nearby. He approached a man who fit the description. It was Oswald. After exchanging words, Tippit emerged from his vehicle, at which point Oswald shot and killed him. It was for the murder of Tippit that Oswald was originally arrested. Now in police custody, investigators began to suspect that Oswald was involved in Kennedy's assassination. Officer Tippit would be posthumously awarded the Medal of Valor. As Kennedy's motorcade made its way through Dealey Plaza, numerous onlookers lined the streets, many taking pictures or videos. One in particular was a man named Abraham Zapruder, who was filming on his 8mm camera as the motorcade passed through. Zapruder's film was the most complete and clear documentation of Kennedy's assassination, and would prove vital in the investigation of the events of that day. Zapruder rests here, at Emmanuel Cemetery in Dallas. And of course, the man responsible for it all is here in Dallas, at Shannon Rose Hill Memorial Park, Lee Harvey Oswald. While perched in a window on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository where he worked, Oswald shot and killed President Kennedy on November 22, 1963. He would meet his own assassin's bullet by the gun of Jack Ruby 2 days later while being escorted to jail. He died before he could be tried for either murder, taking many unanswered questions with him to the grave. Most of the cemeteries in the area refused to accept Oswald for burial. Rose Hill eventually agreed. His original tombstone bore his full name, but was stolen. His mother replaced it with this marker that simply bears his last name. President Kennedy wasn't the only one struck by the assassin's bullet that day. Heading down to Austin and Texas State Cemetery, we find Governor John Connolly, who was governor of Texas at the time. Connolly was in the middle seat of the presidential limo, directly in front of Kennedy. He heard the first shot, and turning to see the president, was hit in the back by the second shot, fracturing a rib and puncturing his lung. His wounds were severe, but after hours of surgery, he was able to recover from his wounds. While we're here at Texas State Cemetery, let's find some other notables, like Gene Cernan. He was a fighter pilot and astronaut. During the Apollo 17 mission in 1971, Cernan became the 11th human to walk on the moon. And as of filming, he was the last man to walk on the moon. But NASA's Artemis program has set a goal to return to the moon by 2025, with peace and hope for all mankind. Many of Cernan's honors are listed here on his stone. Captain Eugene Cernan passed away in 2017 at age 82. A pathway of Texas flags leads the way to the grave of Chris Kyle. He was a United States Navy SEAL sniper. He became legendary for his prowess and acts of heroism, serving 4 tours in the Iraq War. He had over 150 confirmed kills and was awarded numerous honors, including the Silver Star. In 2012, he published a best-selling memoir, American Sniper. A film of the same name would be made by Clint Eastwood, starring Bradley Cooper as Kyle. Tragically, Kyle would not live long enough to see the film's completion. In 2013, he was shot and killed by a fellow Marine Corps veteran suffering from PTSD. Chris Kyle was 38. Here too we find an author named Fred Gibson, a man whose books are his monument. Among these monuments is a beloved classic, the 1956 novel, Old Yeller. The book would be made into a popular film by Disney the following year. Gibson followed up Old Yeller with Savage Sam and Little Arliss. Fred Gibson lived to be 65. This distinctive monument marks the grave of James Cotton, also known as Super Harp. His grave features his instrument of choice, the harmonica. He was a blues harmonica player who performed with many of the great blues artists of his era, including as Muddy Waters' sideman. He'd then go on to lead his own touring group, writing and recording dozens of albums throughout his career. In 2006, he was inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame. James Cotton died from pneumonia at age 81. One of the grandest monuments here belongs to a man known as the Father of Texas, Stephen Austin. He was born in Virginia, and in the 1820s his father received an impresario grant from Spain to settle Texas. After his father's death, the grant was given to Stephen. In 1825, Stephen Austin convinced hundreds of American settlers to relocate to the Texas Territory. He expanded and managed the colony there, becoming the most successful of the impresarios. When the Texas Revolution broke out, he would also serve as a commander. After the formation of the Republic of Texas, Austin served as Secretary of State. Austin was just 43 when he died from pneumonia. His legacy and name can be found throughout Texas, including this very city we are in, the capital of Texas. Our next Austin stop is Hornsby Cemetery, and a man who shares his name with the cemetery, Rogers Hornsby. He was a Major League Baseball player known as one of the greatest hitters in the history of the game. His batting average is third overall behind Ty Cobb and Oscar Charleston. He played 23 seasons, much of his time in St. Louis. His team won the World Series in 1926, and in 1942 he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Hornsby died from a heart attack at age 66. Next up is Austin Memorial Park Cemetery. Here lies James Michener. He was an author known for fictional family sagas. Perhaps his best-known work is Tales of the South Pacific, which won him the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 1948. It would serve as source material for the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, South Pacific, which in turn would inspire 2 films of the same name. Other of his stories were adapted on screen as well, like Return to Paradise. Michener died from kidney failure at age 90. Also here we find Steve Barton. He was an actor and singer of the musical stage, perhaps best remembered for originating the role of Raoul in The Phantom of the Opera in 1986, and reprising the role in the original Broadway production of Phantom in 1988. He had leading roles in other musicals like Cats, Evita, and as Beast in Beauty and the Beast. In 2001, Barton was found dead in his apartment, an empty bottle of prescription heart drugs nearby. He was 47. Our next stop here at Austin Memorial is a name familiar to you classic cinema lovers, Zachary Scott. With his jet black hair, sharp features, and slick mustache, he was known for playing mysterious or villainous characters in the 40s and 50s. His best-known role is as Monty, the romantic male lead, alongside Anne Blythe and Joan Crawford in the 1945 noir Mildred Pierce. He also starred in films like The Southerner and Flamingo Road, again alongside Joan Crawford. Film roles became less frequent in the 50s, so he turned to the stage and television. Scott was just 51 when he died from a brain tumor. Let's move on now to the San Antonio area. In Boerne is St. Helena's Columbarium and Memorial Garden. Here is the niche of Ann B. Davis. The beloved actress played housekeeper Alice on The Brady Bunch in over 100 episodes between 1969 and 1974.
I hate to see you leave, Alice. You've been here with me and the boys for a long time.
7 years. 4 months, 13 days, 9.5 hours.
She would reprise the role as Alice on the various Brady spin-offs in the years that followed. Anne is also known for her role as Schultze in over 150 episodes of The Bob Cummings Show. The role earned her 2 Emmys. Anne suffered a fall in her home in 2014 and later died at the hospital from a subdural hematoma. She was 88. Our next stop is Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery. Here lies Glenn Corbett. His memorable television roles include as Link Case in the series Route 66 and Jason Aldrich in The Doctors. And his memorable film roles include the lead in William Castle's Homicidal and as Charlie Bancroft in The Crimson Kimono. And you Star Trek fans will remember him as Zephram Cochrane in the original series. Corbett died from lung cancer at age 59. Next up here in San Antonio is Sunset Memorial Park. Here we find the grave of Doug Salm. He's considered a key figure in Tex-Mex music. With his band Sir Douglas Quintet, he had a hit in the song She's About a Mover. He found success around Austin during the hippie counterculture movement in the 70s. He'd later form a successful supergroup, the Texas Tornadoes. In 1999, while on a trip to New Mexico, Salm began to feel ill. On November 18th, he was found dead in his hotel room from arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease. He was 58. Also here at Sunset is Leon Payne. He was known as the blind band leader, having lost his sight in childhood. This didn't stop him from becoming a successful singer and songwriter. He wrote hundreds of country songs beginning in the 40s. Among these was the chart-topping 1949 hit, I Love You Because. His songs have been covered by numerous artists, songs like Lost Highway by Hank Williams. Payne would go on to play at the Grand Ole Opry. He died from a heart attack at age 52. Passing through the gates of San Jose Burial Park, a short walk, we find the grave of every housewife's friend, Heloise. In 1961, her advice column Hints from Heloise was syndicated in some 600 newspapers nationwide. It would grow to become one of the most popular advice columns in the US. Her book, Heloise's Housekeeping Hints, would become one of the best-selling books of 1963. Heloise died from a heart attack and pneumonia at age 58. This is San Juan Cemetery. Here is the grave of Emilio Navarra. He was a Tejano and country musician, sometimes called the Garth Brooks of Tejano. Over his career, he charted more than 10 singles on the Hot Latin Tracks chart, finding success both in the US and Mexico. His hits include Por Siempre Unidos and It's Not the End of the World. His honors include a Grammy and a Latin Grammy. In 2016, Emilio was found dead after suffering a heart attack. He was 53. For our next San Antonio stop, we remember the Alamo. The Battle of the Alamo took place in 1836 and was part of the Texas Revolution, in which Texas fought for independence from Mexico. In spring of that year, Mexican troops laid siege to the Alamo, defended by only around 200 Texians and Tejanos. They were outnumbered, but fought valiantly to defend their land. Defenders of the Alamo, which included commanders James Bowie and William B. Travis, as well as the king of the wild frontier, Davy Crockett, were all killed. Following the siege, Generalissimo Santa Anna of Mexico ordered the bodies of the slain defenders burned. A pyre was set and their bodies cremated. This monument to the defenders of the Alamo marks the spot of one of those pyres. Their cremated remains were then buried near the Alamo. It was not for naught, however. Remember the Alamo became a rallying cry for soldiers as they continued to fight for, and eventually win, Texas independence. This is the nearby San Fernando Cathedral, where it's said some of the remains of the Alamo defenders were eventually moved. According to this tablet next to the sarcophagus, some of the cremated remains of the Alamo heroes, including Travis, Crockett, and Bowie, were recovered and re-entombed here in the cathedral. Back to the graveyards, this is Uvalde Cemetery. Here lies John Nance Garner. He was the 32nd Vice President of the United States, serving under President Roosevelt from 1933 to 1941. Prior to that, he was Speaker of the House of Representatives. A rift grew between Roosevelt and Garner in their second term, and Garner was replaced on the ticket by Henry A. Wallace for Roosevelt's third term. Cactus Jack, as Garner was known, lived to be 98. This is Emmanuel Memorial Park in Houston. Here lies comedian Harris Whittles. You fans of Parks and Recreation will remember him not only as a writer and producer on the show, but also playing Harris on the show. Other shows he wrote or produced include Master of None and The Sarah Silverman Show. Harris is also remembered for coining the term humblebrag in 2010. On February 19, 2015, Harris was found dead in his home from a heroin overdose. He was 30. The final episode of Parks and Rec was dedicated to Harris. Our next Houston stop is Forest Park Cemetery. This is the grave of Larry Blyden. He won a Tony Award in 1972 for his performance in A Funny Thing Happened to Me on the Way to the Forum, which he also produced. On television, he starred in the Twilight Zone episode A Nice Place to Visit, and is perhaps best remembered today as the host of the game show What's My Line from 1972 to 1975. Larry was in the process of starting a new game show, Show-Offs, when he died from injuries sustained in a car accident in Morocco. He was 49. In Longview section, we find the grave of Sam Lightnin' Hopkins. He was a country blues singer and songwriter who ranks among the greatest guitarists of all time. He rose to prominence in the 40s with hits like T-Model Blues, Tim Moore's Farm, and Woke Up This Morning.
Whoa, I woke up this morning. Yes, poor lightning shows, please.
Over his decades-long career, he would write and record hundreds of songs and influence the next generation of artists, like Stevie Ray Vaughan. Layne died from cancer at age 69. Just out front of the Chapel of Angels, we find the grave of Maggie Bligh. As an actress, she's perhaps best remembered for her role as Lorna in the original 1969 version of The Italian Job. Other films include Hard Times in 1975, and her television appearances include Gunsmoke and In the Heat of the Night. Maggie died from cancer at age 76. Moving along, we reach the grave of country musician Ted Daffin. He's principally known as a songwriter, having penned a number of hits made popular by other artists. These include the best-selling Truck Driver Blues, I'm a Fool to Care, and Born to Lose, which Daffin also released with his own band, selling over 1 million copies. Ted Daffin lived to be 84. Our last Forest Park stop is the grave of Trey Wilson. He was an actor known for playing rural authoritarian types, usually in comedies. His best-known role is that of Nathan Arizona in the 1987 comedy Raising Arizona. And he played Skip in 1988's Bull Durham. Trey was just 40 when he died from a cerebral hemorrhage. Moving on now to Rosewood in Humble. Let's explore the mausoleum. In these halls is the crypt of Curly Neal. He was a basketball player who played with the exhibition team, the Harlem Globetrotters, which combines basketball play with comedy and theatrics. Between 1963 and 1985, he played some 6,000 games with the Globetrotters. He would become one of the most recognized of the Globetrotters, becoming the featured ball handler. Curly passed away in 2020 at age 77. Let's turn the compass south now, to about as far south as you can go in Texas, San Benito. This is the grave of Freddie Fender. He was a musician specializing in Tejano, country, and rock and roll. He found success both as a solo artist as well as with groups like Los Super 7 and Texas Tornadoes with Doug Somm, who we visited earlier. Fender had a chart-topping hit in 1974 in the song Before the Next Teardrop Falls. He'd have numerous additional hits reach both the country and pop music charts. In 2001, Fender was erroneously reported to be dead by Billboard magazine, an error that gave him a good laugh. It wasn't until 2006 that he actually died, from lung cancer at age 69. Cedars Memorial Garden is in Mineola. Here we find a monument to Noble Willingham. As an actor, he's best remembered for playing C.D. Parker, the saloon keeper, in over 150 episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger in the 1990s. He played John Binford on Home Improvement, and made appearances in films like City Slickers and Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. After his death at age 72, Noble was cremated, his ashes inurned at Riverside National Cemetery in California. This monument to Noble Willingham was later placed here in his native Texas. This is Deadwood Cemetery. Here lies a towering Texas gentleman, Powers Booth. He had a number of memorable television roles, including the title role on Philip Marlowe, Private Eye, Cy Tolliver on Deadwood, and Gideon Malick on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And he'd win an Emmy for his portrayal of Jim Jones in Guyana Tragedy, The Story of Jim Jones. Booth's film roles include as Curly Bill in Tombstone. He died from cancer at age 68. This is the Doris Miller Memorial in Waco. Dory, as he was known, was a United States Navy cook. He was serving aboard the battleship West Virginia during the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. His ship was torpedoed. After helping save several sailors who were wounded, Dory manned an anti-aircraft machine gun, for which the cook had no training, and shot down several Japanese airplanes. He would be awarded the Navy Cross for his actions, the first Black American to receive the honor. 2 years later, Dory would be killed, lost at sea while serving aboard the carrier Liscum Bay, when it was sunk by Japanese torpedoes in the South Pacific. He was 24. Among his many honors, Miller would have a destroyer and an aircraft carrier named after him. Next up is Fairview Cemetery in Hubbard. Here's the grave of Tris Speaker. He was a professional baseball player nicknamed the Gray Eagle. He played 22 years in the majors between 1907 and 1928, much of it with the Red Sox and Indians. He'd come to be regarded as one of the great center fielders in the history of the game, and over his career he'd play for 3 World Series champion teams. Tris was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1937. He died from a heart attack at age 70. Forreston Cemetery is in Forreston. In these grounds is the unmarked grave of Denver Pyle. He had numerous memorable television roles in the 60s to the 80s, including Uncle Jesse on The Dukes of Hazzard, Briscoe Darling on The Andy Griffith Show, and Mad Jack on The Life and Times of Grizzly Adams. And on the big screen he played Amos in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance and portrayed Frank Hamer, who we visited earlier, in Bonnie and Clyde. For his contributions to Western cinema and television, he was awarded the Golden Boot in 1984. Denver died from lung cancer on Christmas Day, 1997, at the age of 77. His grave remains unmarked at the family's request. Greenleaf Cemetery is in Brownwood, a very colorful place. Here lies Robert E. Howard. He was one of the great writers of pulp fiction, sometimes called the father of the sword and sorcery genre. He was active during the 20s and 30s, writing mainly for Weird Tales. His best-known character is Conan the Barbarian, which debuted in Weird Tales in 1932. It was famously adapted on film in 1982, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as Conan. Other characters and stories by Howard that would make it to the screen include Red Sonja and Solomon Kane. Howard took his own life at the age of 30, just one day before his mother died from tuberculosis. They had a shared funeral. It's hard to miss the Jim Reeves Memorial in Carthage, welcomed by a pathway shaped like a guitar. With his rich baritone voice, the country musician would be known as Gentleman Jim, a major component of the Nashville sound that emerged in the late 50s, early 60s. He had numerous hits in this era, including Adios Amigo, Welcome to My World, and He'll Have to Go.
And you can tell your friend there with you, he'll have to go.
Reeves's fame internationally surpassed his popularity in the US, helping bring country music to audiences worldwide. But his career was cut short in 1964 when the small aircraft he was flying encountered a violent thunderstorm and crashed in Tennessee. Reeves was 40. We're in Leesburg now, and Leesburg Cemetery. Here's one for you car enthusiasts. Carroll Shelby. He was a race car driver and auto manufacturer, best known for his automotive masterpiece, the Shelby Cobra, manufactured in the 60s. He's also known for his Shelby variations of the Ford Mustang. These are some of the most prized vehicles by collectors today. Carroll Shelby was inducted into the Automobile Hall of Fame and lived to be 89. This is Mount Vernon Cemetery. Here lies Don Meredith. He was a football player, a quarterback for 9 seasons with the Dallas Cowboys in the 1960s. After retiring from playing, Don would be known as a sportscaster, an original member of the Monday Night Football team, which earned him an Emmy. And his screen time didn't end with broadcasting. Don dabbled in acting too, appearing a number of times on TV's Police Story. Don died from a brain hemorrhage at age 72. Don't you just love these old-fashioned cemetery gateway signs? Oak Grove Cemetery is in Nacogdoches. This is where Helen Vinson is laid to rest. She was a popular supporting actress during Hollywood's golden age, appearing in some 40 films in this era. Among her standout performances are in The Wedding Night, In Name Only, and Enemy Agent. Helen retired from acting in the 40s and lived to be 94. Are you thirsty from all this cemetery strolling in the hot Texas sun? How about quenching your thirst with a cool Dr. Pepper? Not a sponsored plug, just a shout out to the man behind the beverage, Charles Alderton, resting here at Oakwood Cemetery in Waco. Charles was a pharmacist who, in the 1880s, began experimenting with flavor combinations for a new soda. In 1885, he landed on 23 famously secretive ingredients that combined into Dr. Pepper. The beverage would make its national debut at the 1904 World's Fair, and today ranks among the top soft drink brands. Charles Alderton lived to be 83. Also here in Waco, at Waco Memorial Park, we find another country music legend, Hank Thompson. His unique style combined elements of country swing and honky-tonk. For 14 straight years, his band, the Brazos Valley Boys, was named the top country western band by Billboard. His hits include Honky Tonk Girl and 1952's The Wild Side of Life, now regarded as one of the most popular recordings in the genre, spending 15 weeks at #1.
And went back to the wild side of life.
Thompson's career performing and recording spanned some 7 decades, and his life would inspire a novel and its film adaptation, Crazy Heart. Hank Thompson died from lung cancer at age 82. Hank also has a niche at Dallas-Fort Worth National Cemetery, so it's possible he was cremated, his ashes divided between these 2 graves. Either that or one of them is a cenotaph. And finally, our Texas travels take us to DeKalb and Woodman Cemetery. Here lies Dan Blocker, better known to TV audiences as Hoss. The beloved actor played Hoss Cartwright in over 400 episodes of the classic Western series Bonanza between 1959 and 1972. Bonanza was one of the most popular series in the 60s, much of that owed to Blocker's Hoss character. He had other roles as well, like Tiny in Cimarron City, but none would match the lasting appeal of Hoss. Tragically, Blocker died suddenly after surgery from a pulmonary embolism. He was just 43, and Bonanza was still in production. That fall, writers of Bonanza took the unusual step of referencing the death of a major character in the show's storyline, likely the first time that was ever done on television. Oh, and you Lagwagon fans, that's Dan Blocker on the cover of their album, Hoss. And that concludes our tour. What are some of your favorite memories of the stars we visited today? Share them in the comments below, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more famous grave tours. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.